Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Be sure to check out my new and improved website, rockisgeorge.com, where you can find all our social media and streaming platforms, as well as podcast episodes, knac.com exclusives, album and show reviews, and much, much more. My guest for episode 235 is bassist Greg T. Walker of the hard rock act Two Wolf. You may remember Greg T. Walker as the co-founder and bassist of the southern hard rock act Blackfoot from 1969 through 1986. He formed that group with current Lynyrd Skynyrd guitarist Ricky Medlocke, and Walker himself was a member of Lynyrd Skynyrd for a beat. Greg's latest project, Two Wolf, is a co-collaboration with blues guitarist Lance Lopez, who I interviewed a couple years back about his comeback solo album. Two Wolf recently released their self-titled debut, and here's Greg T. Walker to tell you more about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about Two Wolf, how would you describe the band's music to me?
In your face. Hard rock, in your face. No pretense, just full out onslaught of music.
I'd have to agree with that. And of course, Two Wolf is yourself, guitarist Lance Lopez, vocalist KRIS Bell, and drummer Rusty Valentine. I know the group's been around for about a little over 10 years. How did Two Wolf originally form?
When I had resurrected Blackfoot for about 7 years, and when that ended, I did some session work here and there, and went out and did a couple of all-star lineups. No heart in that, I can tell you, because you're playing everybody else's music, and when it came time for the Blackfoot stuff, nobody ever played it correctly. So I stopped that, and I said, it's time for me to move forward and just start all over again like I did many years ago. So I was with a guitar player named Brad Sayer in Daytona, and Tommy Curiel, who was Johnny Winter's drummer. So we brought Lance Lopez in. He was a friend of Tommy's, but Lance was real busy at the time. It didn't last but about 2 months. So we brought KRIS Bell in, who I had known about 5 years already. And same with KRIS, had a full schedule. So he left, so we remained three-piece for a couple of years. And then all the stars lined up, and I got KRIS and Lance both back in the band at the same time. I'm like, my dream band, yes.
So
and Rusty, new drummer. Yeah, it worked out great.
So you recently released your debut self-titled album through Cleopatra Records. Did the stars need to align for this album to happen? Because I'd imagine you've been working on this little by little over the last 10 years, right?
No, we actually just went in the studio a little over a year ago. Now, we did not have a record deal at the time. So we recorded 4 tracks, went back a few months later, did another 4 and then another 4, and didn't know what we would do with it. We just wanted to make an album. And I had worked with Cleopatra before in the past, and of course Lance had. So we sent it to Cleopatra, and they listened to it and immediately said, we'll take it. I mean, it was that quick. But we recorded the album with no deal. So we submitted the finished product, mixed, mastered, graphics, artwork, everything. All they had to do is duplicate it. So the CD came out June 26th, I think it was. And vinyl comes out October 24th, the last I heard. It's in duplication now.
And of course, it's available streaming as well. But older guys like myself and yourself, we're still physical media collectors.
Oh, yeah.
Vinyl is kind of like the thing now. I've started collecting it. I don't even think I collected it as a kid. It was more cassettes and CDs for me. But What do you think about vinyl as a format?
I think vinyl, once we got into the CD era, you go back and listen to the same artist on vinyl, and it made me realize how warm vinyl is because of the grooves, the vinyl itself. CDs were very crisp and crystal clear, but it kind of lost that warm body to it, in my opinion. So some people don't notice it, but I did. I think vinyl is a warmer sounding format. So I'm so glad it's coming back. And some people argued, oh no, after COVID, vinyl sales went down the tubes. I'm like, well, you could fool me because all of my friends buy vinyl all the time, so, which turned out to be true.
The prices are getting a little out of hand, but if they can get a hold on that, I think we'll be all right.
I don't know the price on it today. Um, my friends in Foghat, they put out that blues album a couple of years ago, and they were getting big bucks for that. And if they sign it, that was another $5. But I don't know what the retail value is on the vinyl today, but I'll find out soon. In fact, Lance is in LA right now. I just got a text from him 10 minutes ago, and he said, I'm stopping by Cleopatra. Anything you want to tell them? I said, yeah, I'll send our checks. That's what I want you to tell them. But maybe I need to text him back and say, ask them if they do have an official projected release date, but I think it's October 24th. I'm hoping.
Excellent. So, when it comes to the songwriting on this album, are you the primary songwriter? Does everybody contribute? How's it work?
Pretty much everybody. We went in, we did the first four tracks. So the lead off single was one of mine. And then we wound up doing, I think we did three Blackfoot tracks after that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute now. This is a Two Wolf record, not Blackfoot. But Chris and Lance love Blackfoot, the whole catalog. I said, well, maybe one, two at the most. And it did wind up three. So I wound up with three compositions. Um, I think Chris has four, Lance has two. So it's a group effort. Yeah, we had a lot of songs to choose from, and then we sit down and talk about it. And the majority rules. That's how it works. So it should work.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the songs. Why don't you? Well, first of all, which songs are credited to you?
Keep on Moving, which is the single lead off track. Traveler and Great Spirit.
You know what? I highlighted some songs in my list here that I was going to ask you about. Those are the exact three songs that I highlighted.
Wow.
And
Cool.
I don't have the credits to your album with me, so it worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell me what inspired the song Keep On Moving?
Actually, I wrote that song a long time ago, and I just had a demo version of it. I'd kind of forgotten about it, and I played it for Chris and Lance one day. Oh my gosh, this was 3 or 4 years ago. And they said, what's that? I said, just something I wrote a long time ago. And they said, we dig it. And I said, it's the B song. But when you put Chris and Lance in the band with that guitar work and the vocals, it came alive. I'm like, I never envisioned that song coming out so good. KRIS Bell does the lead vocal on that track.
Okay.
Then I did the lead vocal on Traveler and Great Spirit. And I'm really not a lead singer. So I told them, I said, I'm going to do it, but I'll never do it again. From now on, any song that I submit that we record, one of you two guys is going to sing it. I'm a backup singer. I'm not a lead singer. I don't have the power and all that they do. They hit notes I only dream about.
Well, the songs came out. The song came out well with you on vocals. I think the contrast between the three of you throughout the album kind of sets the album apart from a standard hard rock album.
Yeah, maybe I'm like the Ringo of the band. You get to sneak one in.
Well, certainly not hokey like Octopus's Garden for sure.
No, no.
So the three Blackfoot songs that you chose, Too Hard to Handle, Diary of a Working Man, Fox Chase, kind of not I would say super popular songs from Blackfoot, but certainly enjoyable songs from the catalog. So it's kind of I think people kind of look at it as a Two Wolf thing.
I certainly hope so. Hard to Handle is, that's a straight ahead rocker. That's fun to play. So that was easy. Now, Diary of a Working Man is a different story because that was always one of my favorite Blackfoot songs. I had no writer's credit on that song. And we put that out, I think that's on Marauder album, if I remember correctly. But, we never played that song live one single time, back in the day. And Two Wolf plays it live every show. But I did have Nick Nguyen, who's out of Nashville. He's with that band Bone Pony. He's had that band for many years. I knew that he played violin really well, and I called him up and I said, I need a cello part. Do you know how to play cello? He says, yeah, I've got one. So because he was local to where we recorded, he came in and I quickly told him what parts I wanted him to play. It's not a featured part, but if you listen, you can hear a cello. It really adds depth and warmth to it. Now, when I did it on the original record, I wanted a cello, and there used to be a keyboard called a mellotron. It only had so many tones, that's it. And I wound up doing like a flute part. It's supposed to sound like a Native American flute, but it didn't. Still a cool part, but I still had that thing in my head. I want to hear a cello. And Nick played cello on that, did an outstanding job. Like I said, it's not a featured part. If you listen for it, you go, that's different right there. You can hear the bow go across the string. Listen to that, when you get a second, and you'll hear it.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at that again. When it came to recording the album, did you use a home recording studio? Did you file share, or did you go to one of the regular studios?
We went to a real A+ first class studio about 40 miles out of Nashville called Spellbound Recorders. And that's owned by Nettie Freed. Nettie is the granddaughter of Alan Freed, the Big Bopper. So we're like, wow, that's pretty cool. So they had I think a 1981 analog 24-track console, which, to refurbish one of those, if you can find it, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. So we all stood in the same room and we tracked the songs. And when you get that direct recording into that analog board, that's what gives it the body and the warmth and the depth. Now you do it on Pro Tools, it's like CDs is a little bit sterile, a little bit thinner. So the reason this album sounds like it's got so much depth to it is because of the old board, which was refurbished, of course. But that analog tracking is just great. But we all got in the same room. So the drums are in the room with the other three of us. Now, I went direct through my little Sans out, and then the marshals for the KRIS and LANCE, they were in the little rooms, with the glass doors. So, but we were all standing in the same room. So it's kind of like playing live. You can, of course, even with headphones, you're hearing the ambience of the big drums. But if you pull one side off, and you can hear that bleed from those rooms where the marshals are. So it's just like playing live, and that inspires you to play better. When it's real sterile, you fight it because it's got to be like crystal clear, perfect. But with analog tracking, and being in the same room. That was the magic. And it was quickly done. I mean, one after the other.
And you've actually been out live performing songs from the album
Hmm.
already. How has that been going so far?
Fantastic. We we've done two Southern Rock Woodstocks. We've got one more coming up in October. We Where else do we go? We'll be in Syracuse, September 19th. And then we've got another Woodstock in October in Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Um, did the Rock Legends Cruise this year, and we'll be doing it next year as well. And we've got other dates on the books that we're finalizing right now. So, yeah, it's getting better every day.
Tell me about this Southern Rock Woodstock. You've played a couple of these already. You got a few more on the books. What's that all about?
Pretty much just what it says. So there's kind of an all-star. I don't want to diminish it, but like a house band, so to speak. So the same core band goes to wherever it is in the country. Sometimes there was three this year, or excuse me, four. There's been eight or nine in some years. Um, you're going to hear, some Skinner, some Hatchet, Marsh Tucker, those three especially. And I don't think they play any originals that I remember with the two we've done so far. So it's kind of what you would expect, Southern rock. We're more of a harder edged rock band with Southern tendencies, I guess is how you might say it. We're not your typical Southern rock band. Neither was Blackfoot. We were like in a different category from Skidder and everybody else. But it works out good. That's why we like to do some Blackfoot stuff.
So you mentioned the Rock Legends cruise. You've played one this year. You're playing one next year. What I haven't been on one of these yet, so I would imagine it's a little bit chaotic with all the music that's going on and trying to get around between the musicians and the general public mingling together. What's it like for you on these cruises?
It's absolute musical bliss. This will be my 13th one coming up, 13 in a row for the Native American Heritage Association. And for Chris and Lance and Rusty, I think this will be their fifth one in a row. Because it was kind of a revolving door with Two Wolf in the early stages. But everybody's there for one reason, and that's music. So you don't have a bunch of screaming babies running up and down the aisles and, begging for candy and all that stuff. It's like-minded people that go specifically to hear rock and roll. That's the number one agenda. You walk around in shorts and flip-flops, or you can wear a tuxedo. It doesn't matter. Everybody's happy. It's well organized. So we've got three stages, and each band normally plays all three. And I couldn't ask for a better organization than who we work with. It flows like butter. Everybody's happy. You go up on the pool deck and you can watch, the Who or Styx or any, Billy Gibbons while you're in the pool. There's a lot of concrete space up there too. And then your indoor venues throughout the ship it's first class production. The stages are all excellent. The crews are incredible. But you would have a blast because usually there's about 20 bands average. Each band plays three times in a 4-day period. So you got a chance to hear most every band you want to.
Wow, sounds like an excellent opportunity, actually.
Yes, you would go on the next one after you did one. You go, I got to do this again. People pre-book when they're still on the cruise for the next year. A lot of people.
Awesome. So let's go hit the time machine a little bit. We'll go back to Blackfoot. You were a founder and member from 1970 to 1986 with some breaks there in the middle. You guys released 7 studio albums. You had hit singles Train, Train, and Highway Song, and you released your first album, No Reservations, in 1975 on kind of a small label, Antilles. But your second album, Flying High, was released on Epic Records. Tell
Hmm.
me about how you ended up signing with Epic Records.
It was 69. That's when I formed Blackfoot, actually. Um, I was in Skinner for a minute, and Ricky and I both. And we went to Muscle Shoals with Leonard Skinner as the two band members, two of the five. So we got to know Jimmy Johnson and David Hood at Muscle Shoals Sound very well. And I miss Blackfoot. We were having a hiccup at the moment anyway. That's why Ricky and I joined Skinner. You know, we wanted to keep playing, and we were friends already. So we left and reformed Blackfoot, and we moved up to New Jersey and New York area where we had played before a lot once we left Florida. But we sent a demo tape to Muscle Shoals, and they said, we'll listen to it on the strength of how we know you two from Skinner. And we're thinking, cross fingers. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, you get down here, we'll split the cost of recording. You pay half, we pay half, and we'll shop a deal. And they did. And that was actually Island Records, which Antilles came later, I think. Same company, basically. But No Reservations came out, and it just went boom with a nosedive. I don't think it sold 40,000 copies, maybe. But we went back the next year, did the same thing at Muscle Shoals, and this time they got us hooked up with CBS on the Epic label. Same thing, album came out, we're really excited, went right down the tubes. Then it was 3 years without a record, and in 79, we got a so-called official manager. Let's say that loosely. But his sister happened to work for ATCO. In fact, she was vice president. So that got our foot in the door. So Strikes came out on ATCO. That album went gold in 8 months. I mean, it was quick. And then it went platinum. Who knew?
Obviously
I
not.
got both of them hanging right there on the wall.
So was Atco putting more behind Blackfoot than, say, Epic or Antilles?
Absolutely. From when we turned in what became Strikes, we had a lot of songs left over, as we always did previous records. They were sold on it. They promoted it very well, as a lot of companies did back then, especially the major labels. And we went right out on the road and toured relentlessly. I mean, my gosh, in April of 79, when that record came out, we were already on the road. And I don't think we went home until Christmas. We just stayed out. We played 4 to 6 nights a week. Sometimes we do 7 or 8 in a row, but we were working the record. But ATCO was being really supportive, you know, contributing money so we can stay afloat. Of course, you pay that back eventually, but at least they put it out there up front for you. They don't do that anymore these days.
No.
That was a good situation. But yeah, they were very good to us. And we did that live record over in England. And there was a falling out with the president of ATCO over in London. Actually, it's Atlantic over there. It was a personal issue. I won't go into that. But he kind of got the ass against us and he buried that record. I think they shipped 10,000 copies to the States and that was it. That would have been a huge hit for us over here.
Yeah.
Politics. Somebody got mad and yeah, but I won't go into that.
It's the same story with anybody I've talked to, any musician from the 70s and 80s. It's kind of all the same story.
Mm-hmm. Well, you flirt with one of the girls on the staff who the president of the label happens to have an eye on, they get mad really quick. There's no threat, my gosh.
So, of all the years that you were with Blackfoot, what would you say was the high point for you? Was it that platinum album? Was it a big show? What was it?
From from 79, we've been together 10 years at the time Strikes came out. So from 79 through 84, I think that was our peak 5 years right there. We had Stripes, Tomcatton, the live album, Marauder, and then by the time we got to Siago, the record company was saying you need to change your style of dress, your hairstyle, get more commercial. These younger bands are coming up, and the hair bands, as we call them now. And so Siago was a different record, and we brought Ken Hensley into the band. We were kind of grabbing at straws. We didn't want a keyboard player, but it was suggested. And when you're in that position with a record company like Atlantic, Atco, you have to listen to what they suggest. You can't just say, oh, no, no, we're not going to do that. You say, well, we'll think about it. So we brought Ken Hensley in from Uriah Heep. Ken was a phenomenal player, songwriter, singer. It changed the sound of the band a little bit, no doubt about it. And then when we got to what became the last record, which was Vertical Smiles, very heavily influenced by keyboard, not in just the writing, but the style of the music. And we were grabbing at straws. The record company's like, okay, we heard the first 20, do 20 more. I think we did 60 something tracks to get 10 or 11 to put that album out. I mean, that's stupid. That's ridiculous. They didn't know what was good or bad at that point. Neither did we. We're like, we keep putting out songs and you keep listening and you're going, well, I like two of those five. So write three more. And we'd write 10 more. And it got really disjointed. That was the kiss of death.
Do you have like a vault of Blackfoot songs that have never been released?
I don't personally, but I know the first, like, No Reservations, Flying High, Strikes. We probably had between the three at least 20 finished, mixed songs. And then the next few albums, we always had 5, 6, or 7 left over from that. I would guess there's got to be 40 unreleased songs. I don't know who's got them. I don't think they'll ever be released anyway. And they're good songs. It's kind of like you flip a coin. You want to use this one or this one, and either one's good. You can't really pick. Yeah, a lot of unreleased material.
You mentioned sort of as Blackfoot was forming, you had joined Leonard Skinnard with Ricky Medlock. And
Uh-huh.
how did that opportunity come about for the two of you?
We were actually up north at the time and had kind of burned ourselves out in the market, playing the same places over and over. And people loved it, but they were like, we've heard it a lot. So we're kind of at a standstill. And we moved a little bit farther down into central Jersey. And um, Bob Burns had taken a bad turn at the moment. So Ronnie Van Zant called. He got the number from Ricky's parents, and then Ronnie called us up there. Ricky just happened to answer the phone and said, we need a drummer. And Ricky said, well, I used to play drums. They said, yeah, we know that, but we just need a drummer. I think they were leaning maybe toward Jackson because they knew he was the drummer. And Ronnie said, I don't care, we need a drummer. So we were at a standstill. So actually, Ricky and I both flew down to Florida. I wound up going back up north. I thought I had better chances up there. A few months later, Ricky calls me and said, well, the bass player just quit. If you want it, you got it. I said, I'll be there tomorrow. And I was. So I flew back down to Florida and I joined the band. And at the time, we both had joined permanently, we thought. But it was about 8 or 9 months into it for me. I love those guys. We had been friends since some of us high school and played the same little teen centers and venues, ran into each other in the music stores. So we were friends. It just wasn't quite rocking enough for me. The early stuff was more than what they became known as. And I just simply told Ricky that I really felt the urge to get Blackfoot back together. I said, we need to finish what we started. And then if you want to stay, I want to leave, but if you want to come with me. And Rick said, I agree. So we left and reformed Blackfoot. The rest is history. And we had blessings on both sides. There's never any animosity towards each other from Skinner or us. And we remained friends until the plane crash. We did a couple of shows together, actually. And next thing you know, that plane crashed and that forever changed the world, I think.
Ricky's was kind of in and out of Blackfoot as well. Do you guys still keep in touch?
I haven't spoken to him, but one time, and that was 2005 when Jackson was on a respirator just the day before he died. Jackson had a brain hemorrhage. And that's the first time I talked to Ricky in some years also. And we grew up together since we were like kindergarten. And we just kind of went our separate ways. But he joined Skinner in 96 and he's still with them today. So, I mean, he's coming up on 30 years next year. And I mean, Ricky's a talented guy. He always was. And a real force, on stage. I think in Blackfoot, as far as a front man, a lead singer, and a guitar player, he was hard to beat. And you have a lot of people that have two of the three attributes, but Ricky had all three. And he was a master. He owned all three. And I knew wherever he went, he would do well. And I hope he just does well forever and ever to this day. I wish him nothing but greatness.
Your Indian heritage plays a large influence on your music, the visuals that go along with your music and such. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your tribe?
I am Muskogee Creek, which originally was a tribe out of Georgia, pretty much the whole state of Georgia. And here in Florida, where my ancestors settled on land I live on today, still, we are called the Eastern Branch of the Florida Creek Tribe. There is no Western Branch. I don't know why, but that's our letterhead. It says Eastern Branch. So my father's side settled this land in 1833. And then in 1842, the state came in and said, we're going to deed you this land. I'm thinking, I mean, of course, way before I was born, but when I heard that, I thought, how do you give somebody something they've already had? 1833, and now it's 1842. But we got the official grant. So I got a plaque up there by my gate that says, Walker Homestead, blah, blah, blah. And my mother's mother was Creek also, and lived about 8 miles up the road from here in the same county. So I have Creek on both sides of my family. Jackson was Cheyenne, Cherokee, and French. And he always said, I credit the Cheyenne and Cherokee with all the good things. Anything bad, I blame on the French. His mother was full blood, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, but his dad was a mixed blood. That's where the French came in.
Does the T and Greg T. Walker stand for Two Wolf?
No, I wish I'd have thought about that years ago, but no, it just just Greg. On my birth certificate, it says Greg T. Walker.
So what inspired the band's name, Two Wolf?
We left Florida in '69. Early '70. Moved to New York City. 2 weeks later, we're watching Johnny Cash. And no, first, let me back up. We got to New York City. A couple of weeks went by. We found out a band on the West Coast in California had a record out under the name Hammer. That was our band name. We said, oh, we need to change the name of the band. So we changed the name to Free. 2 weeks later, All Right Now came out, and we said, we got to change the name again. So we changed the name. And but in searching, we were watching a Johnny Cash show. Every Sunday evening, he always had a tribe or members of a tribe on his variety show, different ones. This happened to be the Lakota, and it was the Blackfoot Sioux. Sioux has many sub-tribes. And when they said Blackfoot, Jackson said, Blackfoot. That's what we'll name the band, Blackfoot. It's like bold and powerful. It was that simple. So thank you, Johnny Cash.
And how does Two Wolf derive from that?
My tribal name became such from sweat lodges, fasting, and in the course of a lifetime, you can have a different name or several different names. Sometimes your name changes because of an act of bravery or kindness. So you're not stuck with a name first given you as a young child. So mine came from a vision, Two Wolf. Actually, it was Two Wolf and an eagle, but that's a mouthful. So I just Two Wolf. And like you said, and I didn't realize this for a long time, the initials, GTW could have been Greg Two Wolf, but no, it's Greg T. Walker.
Well, Greg, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new Two Wolf album, self-titled, is out now through Cleopatra Records. Vinyl is on the way, hopefully by fall, and you're out there hitting it live. And I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me about Two Wolf and everything you got going on today.
Been a real pleasure. Hope we do it again.
Once again, I want to thank Greg T. Walker of Two Wolf and Blackfoot for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out the latest self-titled Two Wolf album out now through Cleopatra Records. Head over to your favorite streaming platform, take a listen to the album. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy, support the artist. While you're there, if you're not familiar with Blackfoot, educate yourself with some good Southern rock history. For all things Two Wolf, head over to their official website, twowolfrocks.com. I also want to thank John Lappin of Lappin Enterprises and Cleopatra Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.